Welcome to On the Table, a podcast about board games, card games, and tabletop war games. Welcome to episode 92 of the On the Table Gaming podcast. And this week, we're once again looking at campaigns for A Song of Ice and Fire, the miniatures game. Now, I'm really excited because I'm joined by Emil, who is going to be pitching to you guys a campaign system in which he needs some feedback and play testing. It's going to be for A Song of Ice and Fire, the miniatures game, of course. And I'm really excited to get this out here and talk about it so that we can get some feedback and help this grow. So, Emil, thank you so much and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Chase. It's good to be here.
So, before we get started, it's always great to hear about, how people find their way to tabletop wargaming and, the experience and perspectives that they bring with them. So how did you get into tabletop gaming? And, then how did you find your way to A Song of Ice and Fire, the miniatures game?
Yeah, sure. Well, originally I started out playing the old Warhammer Fantasy back in 8th edition when it had just come out. Me and a gaming group, like my friendly local gaming group, pretty much exclusively played that game. We had, good fun. It's a good competitive game, and we really enjoyed ourselves. Competed in like the national championships and stuff.
Oh wow!
Yeah, sure.
Oh man.
I think I live in Denmark, in northern Denmark, and I think the gaming community where I live was fairly competitive at the time, which was great. Obviously, we enjoy mostly strategic tactical play, which is why when they then killed the fantasy setting, Games Workshop killed their fantasy setting and introduced the Age of Sigmar game. Basically, that killed our local gaming group. A bunch of us quit the game out of frustration. So I was kind of, doing other stuff for a couple of years. I moved away to get an education, and I was kind of jumping between games, not really having a miniature game to play, until a mate of mine, basically he backed the Kickstarter, and he every time I was home for like the weekend or whatever, he would beg for me to play, and I would go, I was kind of still, heartbroken over Warhammer Fantasy, and I had a lot of miniatures at home that, I paid for and couldn't use anymore. So I was kind of burned out on miniature games. And I was kind of telling him, I can't afford to get into a new game. I don't have, the time. But eventually, he just whittled me down, and I finally agreed to play a game with him. And we played one game, and then immediately after we played another. And when I left his house that night, I was going, God.
You got the itch. You're gonna be back in.
Yeah. I knew before I left his house that night that I was screwed. I was in.
So what armies did you play, or what army did you play back in the old Warhammer Fantasy days?
Well, I was always I played all the elven races, so I played the high elves, the wood elves, and the dark elves. So basically I painted all of them in the same scheme. So I could use a bunch of the minis for like I used the dark elf crossbowmen, but I would use them as archers in all three armies, right? Because I'm more of a player than a painter.
Mm-hmm.
Painting is not the aspect of the hobby that I enjoy most. So obviously being able to use the same models in multiple armies gave me a great deal of freedom and flexibility.
That's amazing. So one of my buddies, Josh, and we both played in 4th and 5th edition, and we played High Elves. And I always have to ask, having played Warhammer Fantasy a long time ago, and I'm fine with everyone, whatever army they chose, unless it's orcs. And then I look at them sort of suspiciously, and I go, what is wrong with this person on some level? I don't know. And then you got the bug here. Now you're getting into the Song of Ice and Fire, the miniatures game. Man, this really does scratch that board and sword tray, movement style fantasy game. It's almost been like a bad thing. I've been trying to look at other games and stuff, and I just keep being like, man, there's a lot of other games out there that have tray systems, but it's like, I could just be playing A Song of Ice and Fire. It's such a clean system. The tactics cards, everything works so well.
I tip my hat to Chenol and his team, Fabio Courier, of course, because it's such an impressively designed game. I think it's so good. You have 35 actual pages of rules you have to learn, right? So it's very easy to learn, but it's it has so much tactical depth. I think the whole easy to learn, difficult to master is really true with this game. It's not difficult to learn that you have these 5 or 6 actions and you have to keep track of your orders and stuff, but pretty easily you can learn to manage those actions. But then to learn every ability in the game and every order and every tactics card, and learn to utilize them, and knowing what your opponent has, and you know, it's an incredible game, and it's so well suited for competitive play. And I think unlike fantasy or any of the other, you know, I feel like I'm bad mouthing an ex-girlfriend here, but
No, and I get it. They're kind of the biggest one.
It's so impressive from CMON. I'm so endlessly impressed that the development team so clearly listens. I mean, it's so wonderful to be part of a community, like especially like here thinking about the Facebook group, right? It's so impressive to be part of a community where the development team listens to constructive feedback and adjusts their game accordingly, right? The game came out in like November 18, right? We're already on 1.5. That's how, like, they've changed or 1.6 now. They've changed the game so much according to player feedback, and I think that's the way to keep the game alive, and that's the way, you know, to ensure player engagement. I'm very impressed.
Absolutely.
It's for sure. I mean, you know, hook, line, and sinker. This is my game now.
I know. Trust me, as someone who's like, we're coming up on like we're on episode 92 here. It's been a couple of years of, you know, weekly, daily content for this. It's amazing. And so the thing is, a lot of people, and then they put out a lot of content now. People are playing, you know, there's the beta modes that have come out. There's a lot of different, you know, ways to play the game, including they came out with that first in battle campaign. And, you know, you're here today to talk about, you know, building out a campaign system even further, like taking it a step beyond that, right? And so we know we've touched on campaign style games in the past, but for those maybe who haven't experienced that style of play, you know, what are we talking about when we're talking about playing a campaign?
Yeah, so I watched the episode, which I of course also recommend to anyone listening now. I watched the episode you did with
Demo?
Yeah, that's right. On you know, executing campaigns, and when I heard that, basically that's what got me inspired to making a Song of Ice and Fire campaign, because I've made campaigns for other games as well before, with, you know, mixed results but mostly success. I think the goal of a campaign mode, right, is to make every battle, you know, there's a point to every battle. You're not just meeting every week, throwing whatever army together and having a one-off, which, you know, is cool. I love, you know, that's also like the tournament player in me. I love the one-offs, but if you can develop grudges and, you know, expand your territory and you know, truly become a force to the other players, it also gives everyone incentive to meet every week, right? If you're playing in your friendly local game store, if you're playing a campaign, it's a great way to drum up some hype about your campaign, right? Because suddenly you're meeting 8 or 10 people, and the other patrons in the gaming store are going, wow, you know, there's a lot of people over there. I wonder what they're doing, and that way you get to spread your game, right? I think campaigns are great both for experienced players who want to get something more than just the regular one-offs. For new players to kind of, you know, experience the game, especially in mind with the campaign setting that I've written now. Its intended use is for both experienced and new players to be able to play together in the campaign.
And before we get into some of the, you know, kind of the cornerstones of the campaign system you're building here, you know, why now? Why are you thinking about campaigns now? You know, and how are you maybe hoping this might help people grow their local communities?
Sure. I mean, truth be told, I think it kind of falls in line with what CMON said when they released their first in battle campaign mode, right? Like, obviously, for anyone listening to this in a couple of, you know, later, we're currently in the midst of the pandemic, so obviously a bunch of gaming groups have obviously taken a hit and aren't able to meet as much as they maybe want to. That's certainly true for my gaming group as well. We're only not just now here in Denmark, you know. We're about to, you know, we're currently discussing if we're going to go on a second lockdown, right? So it's difficult to meet, and it's difficult to, you know, a bunch of groups have maybe not played for like 5 or 6 months at this point, and I think a campaign setting is a great way to kind of reestablish a group and to kind of get everyone back together and go, you know, guys, on the first of the next month we're starting this great big campaign and we're super excited to get everyone back into it and stuff. I think it's for people to be able to do something keep them interested in the game in these times, right? Also, endless studies are being made about the positive results of I don't want to say escapism, but
it's like a coping tool.
Having enjoyment with friends in difficult times. I'm sorry, I'll just quickly fix.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we've had Gabriel from Soaring Families Counseling. We had a licensed therapist on the past talking about how gaming can be such a great coping tool, especially in this time of like dramatic uncertainty and really abnormal situation we're finding ourselves in.
And I wholeheartedly believe that.
Okay, so then that being said, you're coming out with your campaign system here. What are some of the cornerstones of your campaign?
So I think any good campaign system, in my opinion, should be easily accessible. Like it's very daunting to open a campaign system and see like 45 pages of rules that you have to learn. And I've certainly written those systems in the past. I've learned the hard way that doesn't work, especially not for casual play. So this campaign system is really written with the intent of being about as bare bone as it gets, literally just facilitating turn-based play. We discussed this before I started writing the rules. We did want a map, right? So you get the whole big map of Westeros where you get to claim these points of interest from your opponents and stuff. So it has this turn-based mechanic, and it has a battle map, and it also, one of the cornerstones in the game is a catch-up mechanic, where basically the lower half of the players get a strategic advantage, so that there's nothing worse than being on the second round of a 12-round campaign and being so far behind that you kind of don't even want to show up, because what's the point, right?
Right.
Yeah. So the campaign system is written with, basically, I think it's written with the intent of kind of getting out of the way, right? It facilitates what it has to do. It enables people to meet every week and play turn-based games and claim territories from each other, but without being so needlessly complex that it bogs down play. I think especially like if you're in a friendly gaming group that meet privately, you can advance the rules. You can play as advanced as you want. But I think for casual play in a friendly local game store, I think it's important that the rules are so simple that you don't have to practice or like read up on the rules a great deal before you start. So it's pretty bad, but I believe it's just currently as it stands, the campaign system.
I mean, especially for a game that is so accessible as it is, like you don't want to have, I think a lot of our player base, the Song of Ice and Fire, the miniatures game players, they aren't used to having to like pour through additional books or other rule sets and having the campaign kind of be in line with the gaming experience in general we're used to. That helps. So you don't want to have to be like, consulting too many charts or going back to the books for too much information just to have this fun style of play.
I agree.
So we're going to be going to talking about this campaign here. So what makes this different from something like First in Battle that Simon put out?
Yeah, so I think the First in Battle campaign kind of enables you to pick a unit, and that unit will grow in power, which I think is a really cool idea. But I also think it's more bookkeeping for the individual player, right? And suddenly there's a unit on the other side of the board that you don't know what does because it's new and stuff, which can certainly be cool. But like in the books and the TV show, you see this great big map where the players are discussing moving their troops and claiming territories and stuff. And that's kind of what I was going for in this campaign supplement that I'm working on here. Which, by the way, for future, as we continue to discuss it, the working title is Vanguard. Every time we mention Vanguard, that's in reference to the campaign system. So basically it enables map-based play. So if you want to go, I want to claim Casterly Rock from the Lannisters. That's an option you have in this campaign setting, which you don't have in the First in Battle campaign. So I think that's the major difference.
So I can finally lead Mance Rayder, the rightful soon-to-be ruler of all of Westeros, and I can stomp through the southern lands to King's Landing and be like, "This is mine now," or at least I can hope. One can hope.
I mean, as a fellow free folk player, I think it's finally time that Yeah, I say let's just split it, right? I play Baratheons and Free Folk. We'll just split it at
I mean, come on. I mean,
the twins.
is it too much to ask that now that the TV series is over, that the books can maybe diverge in their approach, and maybe we find out it was all about Mance all along? Who knew?
Sure, sure.
But no, but joking aside, I think one thing that I really appreciate about the approach of trying to have it be map based, rather than the first in battle, which is another great way to play. And you said, they're not competitors. You know, the community is huge, right? And the online communities that we have, the Facebook group, the Discord groups, those are just a fraction of the player base that's actually playing the game out there. And so there's a never-ending insatiable hunger for new content and things. So I think this really kind of falls into a spot that's awesome, because it's the idea of having it have the map. It does feel very thematic, right? So just like having the tactics board with the game allows you to bring in these NCUs. Part of Game of Thrones and sort of the fantasy of playing the game is, this political maneuvering, the battles, and then, the positioning on the actual maps and like claiming territories or threatening areas or gaining different resources. That's really key.
Sure.
Now you added in your campaign, there is a resource mechanic. Can you maybe just kind of preview that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, so basically the campaign, which sorry, let me restart.
Hmm?
Yeah, sure. Basically the whole campaign revolves around a resource called renown, and you gain renown by claiming these seats of power, which are basically like points of interest on the Westeros map, or I should say Westeros and Essos, because with the recent introduction of the Targaryens, of course, making map-based play, you obviously need Essos as well. So in this campaign, I basically made the map. I had to make the map myself because I couldn't find a territory-based map that both went north of the wall and all the way to Slavers Bay. Mm-hmm. So yeah, basically all the factions that are currently in play, with the addition of well, basically I'm theory crafting, and I don't know anyone at CMON. I'm just, my clear expectation is for the final faction, at least, will be the Martells, right? So those 9 factions each have some points of interest, or like these seats of power that you get to claim and work your way outwards from there, right? So if you want to be north of the wall as the free folk, and completely control the north before you move south, that's totally an option for you. If you would rather sail down the coast and assault all of the north, or hell, even all the south, if you want to do that, that's an option for you. And I think that's one of the coolest things about playing a campaign mode, right, is that you basically get to write your own version of the story. You get to go, obviously the rules, the current Song of Ice and Fire game revolves around the War of the Five Kings. And I think it's a cool idea that you can go, yeah, but what if, right? What if Dany went west way earlier? What if she arrived on the shores of Dawn or White Harbor or whatever much earlier? Well, you get to find out what would happen in a campaign like this. So I think that's one of the big strengths of a campaign, especially like for thematic play and casual play. That you get to, in unison write this new cool version of the story.
So I think this is, I'm just excited to get this out there for people to start, testing out. So this is not a finished product though, right?
That's correct. Like basically this is a one of two, right? Like this podcast is intended to reach out to the community. If you're sitting, get just now heading out of the pandemic and you're looking to reinvigorate your gaming group, and you kind of want to go, hey, I will help make this product a reality, right? Then we'd love to hear from you. So basically reaching out for game testers who wish to play test some of the mechanics of the game. So because obviously theory crafting will get you so far, but eventually you need fresh eyes on the campaign to play a couple of rounds and see what they think of the game.
I think this is such a great opportunity here. And I know, because I've talked to people too that are veteran gamers who have also made campaigns. And so in this, helping Emil out here, we will link to his documents in the description of this episode, whether you're listening to that on Spotify or iTunes. or on YouTube even. But what we're not going to have it open up to be commented on at this point. So Emil, it sounded like what you were looking for really is to share some of the basic information and then have some play testers that can help you run through things and, not to be negative, but like kind of see if they can break it or if there are areas where it like, you're like, oh yeah, like it turns out in this one rare exception, like something can happen that maybe makes it not as fun or successful as one would hope. And to help get some feedback there, right?
Yeah, for sure. I have in the past, in different games, stuff published content that hadn't, that I just had in my head and thought was, this is awesome. And obviously I'm a genius, so if I couldn't find any holes in it, obviously they're not going to be any holes, which lasted all of 10 minutes before someone, posted a game-breaking combo.
Yeah, that's like the first rule of gaming, right? Even like when you're playing the game, you're like, nothing is going to go as you think it's going to go.
No plan survives contact with the enemy. Hey,
exactly.
Yeah. So obviously, if you feel you don't necessarily need to be like some great strategic genius or anything. Like if you're passionate about the game and have a gaming group, obviously individual people reading it as well and giving their feedback is obviously appreciated. But I think really what we need this product is for it to reach the tables. So if you are interested in being a part of this, go ask your gaming group, hey, did you hear about this new possible campaign system coming out? I'd like to help, playtest it. Is that something you guys are interested in? And once your gaming group is on board, I think that's really where valuable, valuable discussion about the state of the campaign supplement. I think that's where we will find that stuff. So individuals is much appreciated, but what we're really looking for is groups of people willing to test some of the mechanics of the game.
And you guys, I know a lot of groups are starting to get back up and running. Some are already going strong. Some have yet to return. This can be a really fun way to throw out an additional maybe way of engaging with this game, which is awesome. But maybe, every week or, however often you're meeting with your group, maybe you slide this in here and give it a shot. And, you're going to have a chance to experience playing with the game and the franchise and the miniatures and the lore in a different way that might be really fun. And you might realize, this is something that I'm really into. And you might be looking for more ways to expand and play in this manner. So Emil, is this going to be, is this kind of like a one and done thing here? Or are we going to be possibly expecting other content from you in the future?
I mean, yeah, I'm super excited about like the Song of Ice and Fire community. I think it's a really like I think like you said, there's a great hunger for content. I think a bunch of people are making really, really good quality content out there already. I'm kind of swamped with work at the moment, but I am strongly considering, making some content myself eventually. Basically focusing on the strategic aspect of the game. I think there are plenty of people making battle reports, and I think, which are obviously great and give a real-time insight into how the game is played. But I think there is a niche in the market for someone making, I don't want to say advanced strategic, but making, talking about some of the strategies of the game that might, be lost on a newer player, right? So content, there's plenty of content to get people into the game. I'm considering making some content for people who are, already seeped in the game and want to, improve strategically.
Absolutely. I know. I think especially you definitely should do that. And if you're listening too, like, jump out there, make content. The more people are talking about the game, the better. And, if you're listening and you're not in the A Song of Ice and Fire Miniatures Wargaming Facebook group, think about jumping in there or checking out the A Song of Ice and Fire Discord. I know those communities are growing as well. And, it's a great way. A lot of people in the community network over those communities. And so that might be a place to look at. Now, I do know a lot of people, don't use social media in that way. And if you found the podcast through other means, that's totally cool as well. But, there are some pretty cool communities out there that people are using, and they're growing pretty fast.
And I think one of the really cool things, which, obviously is not a huge point, but I think it's really cool that the Facebook community group is well, just what I said, community run, right? It's Simon Swan, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Runs the Facebook group, and basically it's just fan driven, which is, I think, really cool. And we get some spoilers, some early stuff, and the Simon crew are really good at at keeping the hype train going. Which
Yes.
if you're not in the Facebook group, you should consider it. It's yeah, I think maybe we'll link it in the description as well, so people can
absolutely. Yeah. So part of the and if you guys do make content, just remember, if you share it in the Facebook group, part of their rules is, link back to the Facebook group so that people can find it in your content and find their way to the community. So little pro tip there. All right. So this is kind of just teasing out the idea of a campaign, right? This campaign system you've got. We need the play testers to go through and work through it. So it sounds like the easiest way for them to do that, to facilitate with that, we will drop your Google form in the description below. So if you guys are listening, check out the notes on the podcast there, and you can click that form. And if you want to be involved in helping test this out, that would be the way to do so. And then Emil, what are you looking for from these sort of play testers?
Yeah, I kind of want to stress that playtesting this stuff, I mean, obviously, if you do get access to stuff, we don't want 2 versions of the campaign system out and about, right? So just be patient, and eventually everyone else will get to see the cool thing we're working on. But yeah, I really don't think playtesting, if you do get your group involved, like when you have to pitch this to them, it's not going to be super invasive to the regular group play. Like I said, I think the campaign's greatest achievement is to kind of get out the way so people can play games. So it's not a big thing where you have to be poring over rules for hours and hours, and there's an hour of pre-setup before you start playing or anything. I think if you are interested, and if your group is interested, I think for sure you should click the link below, and we'll be in contact.
So Emil, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. I'm really excited to see what comes of this, and thank you for putting so much time in to make something that the community can really enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, likewise, man.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. Now, I'm looking forward to hearing what sort of feedback you get, and then we can cycle back in the future, maybe when there is some playtesting feedback, and you feel like things are in a polished place where we can, make sure everybody knows that this sort of finished campaign is out there. Thanks for coming on, and in the meantime, I hope you get your miniatures on the table.